Hello and welcome to round number 6 of the 2025 Minnesota Open. This is the last round of the tournament and I am super excited to show this game to you guys. Just because it's the last round, we get to go home after this one, so let's just get right into it. Alright? So here, for the last round, I am playing on board number 9 and I get to play the black pieces again. From round number 5, I got to learn a lot about what to do against d4 openings, not going for that c5 push on the pawn, undermining the d4 pawn, and instead going for b6 ideas was not the best approach. c5 is always a very nice idea to consider, especially against d4 openings, against the London, against the Queen's Gambit, things like that, right? So in this game, my opponent played d4, and again, I am going for knight f6, trying to go for something so Indians. If we're having c4, e6, knight here, and then just bishop b4, right? So that's my plan. And my opponent goes for knight f3. Knight f3 is a good way to prevent all that kind of stuff, right? So there's no push of e4. So I believe that in this opening, the opponent is trying to, by the way, let me turn the evaluation on. The opponent is trying to get some ideas of if you go for the same plan of e6 or so, and then maybe they can just go for something else. Maybe like bring the pawn up, fianchetto the bishop on g2, different things. The opponent can, the other player can do other things. So here I decided to go, because there's no c4, I just said, you know what, I am going to control the center by preventing any other push of the pawn at one point, by going and responding with the move d5. So that's the plan, just d5, controlling. If anything, if there's c4, now I can even consider just a Queen's Gambit, decline. But I did not go for that. Instead, I went for, after c4, I went for this takes. The reason why I went for this move on pawn takes on c4, it's because on my previous tournament, one of my opponents, I think it was the second to last round number 4. I don't remember how many rounds I played, but my opponent went for I went for the d4, c4, and my opponent just took. He went for the Queen's Gambit, accepted, and it made me feel a little bit uncomfortable because you don't often see this, right? You don't see this much compared to the decline or other things, right? So I said, you know what, I'm just going to go for this. And if my opponent captures, I'm not going to try to defend. Or if my opponent attacks the pawn, I'm not going to try to defend that pawn. So my opponent went with a safe approach and conservative approach of e3, right? So e3, the nice thing about, like, for the black pieces is that it's already blocking the dark square bishop from developing and pinning the knight at one point to the queen. So in this idea, I don't even go for defense on the pawn. Instead, I go for e6. And why do I not go for b5? b5 can be a little bit dangerous because now your opponent has the move a4. And if you're trying to defend different things like c6 and things like that, now that your opponent can capture and can try to activate some pieces along the diagonal on the light squares. Here, a very nice move is just like knight c3, or even going for b3 ideas are nice, because these are very soft pawns. Your opponent can try to target this at the end. So let's say, let's look into this, right? Like, so b3, for example. What happens if I capture here? The opponent, your opponent can even go like bishop check here. If you try to defend with the bishop, then queen takes b3. If you capture, you can go for ideas like this. Then knight c3. The reason why this is not that great for the black pieces, and you can tell by the evaluation bar, it's because let's say you go here. This is already a disaster, first of all, because a fork is coming and then you're dropping a pawn anyway, so you need to be careful with this idea. Let's say, like, if this whole, like, all these traits happen, let's say even with something like this, it's still advantage for the white pieces just because you have a very, very weak pawn on a7. You may think, oh, it's a passer. Is it though? There are a bunch of pieces that can try to target they can all try to target this pawn. So after castles or something, and doubling up the rooks and things like that, they can try to capture this pawn easy, and they will just be up a pawn, you know. So yes, both parties here captured 3 pawns already, but this pawn is very weak. You have to defend it with heavy pieces or minor pieces. Okay, so let's go back. So that was my idea. My opponent went for e3, and then after e6, my opponent just captured. And the whole point of e6 is, yes, I block my light square bishop, but I mean, I can always flank it at one point, or, you know, develop it like this, or maybe like this even. But this way, there are no sacrifices or potential things. I'm just doubling, you know, the protection here of my f7 pawn. In this game, I went for c5 right away. And this is something that I learned from the previous game, right? Like round number 5, I didn't go for c5. Instead, I went for b6, and then my opponent was able to develop the queen on f3, right? So there was no knight f3, but that was a wrong approach from me, where I had to just respond with a move like c6, which was uncomfortable. So I think learning from the previous game, and this is something that between the rounds, I made this friend at the tournament site, and we were evaluating different positions. We were really looking into different positions against d4 openings, and we looked into the Nimzo Indian and why c5 is such a strong move, and we were studying that a little bit, and I liked it. It was super nice, and it made me not feel afraid about playing c5, especially because when I played against strong players in the past in other tournaments, they also played c5 right away. Not right away at the beginning of the game, but maybe like in the early middle game, or maybe in like move number 5 or so. I don't know. It was something quite relatively fast. And it is a very strong move, right? Because you may think, oh, if they just capture here, you can first of all just capture the king, or sorry, the queen, and then you can just capture this guy here. You can even take your time, I think, by developing the knight. Can you develop the knight here? Can you develop the knight here? Maybe not so much, but you can. If you're afraid, you can just go for something like this. And the position is very nice. Your opponent cannot castle. I mean, they have to bring the king to e2 or something, and you can castle if you want. You know, this is fine. This is good. So undermining the pawn in the center right away, I think it's a really good way to go for equality, you know, equalizing as black. So my opponent castles. I just developed my bishop to e7, and then my opponent takes here. I take the queen first, and my opponent captures with the rook. Another thing here for this tournament, this is the last round. I am tired from playing all the games all day, the day before, and this is the second game of the day on a Sunday, and I felt like I played so well throughout the tournament that now I am ready to go home and rest and not have to play any other long games of chess, because these games are very long, 90 minutes each person with 30-second increments. The games are lasting a long time, and some of the players are taking that time between rounds like all the way up to the max. So, you know, it can drag. It can feel like it's dragging quite a bit, right? So here I just capture the pawn. This is meaning that I just want to get a draw and go home, right? So the knight on the b file develops to d2. I castle, and my opponent just brings a knight there. So I have a couple options. I can just consider bringing the bishop here to b6 to keep an eye out here for any knight on d4, or I can just bring it back to e7 and control more of the squares, also controlling the d6 square. So I decided to go for that one instead. Just bring the bishop back, because I want to trade all the pieces that I can. Because so far, if you can notice by the pawn structure, we have both pawns on the side here on the queen side for both colors, and 4 pawns on the king side, right? So symmetrical structure, same pawn, same position, same type of pieces, minor pieces and things. So if I can just trade everything, this is pretty much a draw. So here my opponent goes for bishop d2 to develop his other rook. I bring my pawn to b6 because now I want to develop my bishop along the diagonal, right? So here I also had an option of bishop d7 too, but I didn't want to allow knight here on e5, you know. So apparently what's the best move here? It says, oh, attack the knight here. Okay, That could be a move, I guess. I didn't think about that. Anyway, okay. So that could have been an option. I didn't even think about that move. Instead, I went for b6 to have a better diagonal, although we don't have a queen, so having this diagonal, I guess, doesn't really make much sense. After that, I bring my knight first. So you can think, oh, what if I just bring my bishop here? That was the whole point of moving the pawn to b6, right? I was just afraid of the move knight e5. Activating my knight already, or activating my opponent's knight already there. And there's no way for me to defend or like do anything about this guy, right? At one point, he can even go for some outpost with f4, although that would weaken e3. But that doesn't really do much. But still, I didn't want to allow any play. Instead, I started with this move, knight c6. Knight c6 to just prevent any knight e5 ideas. And here my opponent just develops his other rook. Now I develop my bishop. And here my opponent goes with knight d4 or knight b d4. Here I decided to trade one set of knights and then develop my rook to c8. So this is the wrong move, but it's up to my opponent to see what the whole point of this mistake is, or this blunder, I guess. You can pause the video and take your time to find the move for the white pieces. So try to find the move for the white pieces that is the whole point of the evaluation going to plus 1.8. You can pause the video. I will proceed with the explanation. So the reason why the evaluation goes up to like plus 1.8, and this is something that maybe more experienced players would go for right away, is the move knight takes e6. A sacrifice of a knight. And the best move in this position is actually to bring the rook, the f rook, to e8. That's the best move. Kind of crazy, huh? That's the best move to respond to it. Not capturing the knight. And the whole point is that if you capture the knight, now you get forked, you know, king, rook. And here you just have to move the king away. Then your opponent captures this rook. You have to capture it. I guess you can capture with both. It's kind of hard to capture it. Like if you capture with the rook, for example, they capture back with the rook. You take here, and now your opponent goes with rook c1, attacking the bishop, right? So here you have to bring the bishop to d7, let's say, and then now your opponent infiltrates, attacking the bishop and attacking the pawn. Let's say here you go with the move a6. Now there's bishop c3. The whole point is like now you're targeting the knight. And if you capture the knight, if you capture back, now you lose the bishop. So you have to move the bishop one more time. So bishop, let's say, bishop d6, it says. Oh, counter-attacking the... That's kind of crazy. Just rook b7. And now what? Now you need to move this guy? Bishop b5? I don't know. This is just getting out of control. Bishop b5, I guess. And now you're still playing chess. You have both bishops. Now he can capture here. I guess there's still chess to be played. It is kind of tricky because the whole point of this exchange is that your opponent has a few pawns for a piece. And they can try to still play the game, right? Because they have 4 pawns here on the king side versus 2 split pawns. And then they have the connected pawns here on the queen side. And I guess they can go with ideas like this at one point. Maybe like I would consider this actually. Let's say, is this a move? a4? Because now if your opponent can just move the bishop, but if you capture here, now your opponent captures this guy, you need to move the bishop one more time to b3, I guess, or something. And then try to activate your king. By the time you activate your king, bring it to the queen side, now all these pawns start rolling up. And it's very tough to play. But you have to see all that, the whole sequence, right? So instead of this move, rook a8, I should have gone with rook d8, rook 8 d8 or something, because there's no fork anymore. After this, I can just capture. It says rook takes d1. I think that's probably fine. Takes, and then you can just capture the knight after capture here. Now you don't get forked and you don't lose the rook there, right? And it's still, you're just up a piece in exchange for what, like a couple pawns or so. So you're still playing chess, and the black pieces are a little bit better. So that was the whole miss of my opponent, because he went with the move bishop to e2, and the evaluation goes back to draw, to a zeros. Yes. So here I decided to go with the move a6, and here the whole point of the move a6 is to prevent the knight from jumping to b5. I don't want to activate my opponent's pieces, and if he captures my rook, I can just capture back with my other rook. I just don't want to have his knight be very active, you know. My opponent goes with the move f3, and I decided to trade one set of rooks. My opponent captures back with the rook, and here I pretty much offer a draw by bringing the rook to c8. So now it's up to my opponent to see if he wants to capture my rook or not. So a little context here. My opponent is taking quite some time to think about what to do. And it is fair, because my opponent is a stronger player, right? 2083. I am coming, and everybody can see that my rating is 1649, although it was not updated, but it's fine. But one thing is that a lot of players were talking about this guy who was 1600, who's 1600, me, defeating national masters and doing really well at the tournament. So I think that my opponent, after thinking a lot, he probably thought that, I mean, I don't know for sure, right? But he probably thought, like, who's this guy? This guy is clearly not his rating. He's doing really well against these strong opponents. So maybe just getting a draw against this guy is better than just losing against him and losing a lot of points, right? So maybe, I mean, I don't know. I don't remember how many points he came with to the last round. And I think I came with like 2.5 points out of whatever. And I think he had like 2 points so far. I don't remember exactly. But maybe that thought of, okay, I just want to be done with the tournament as well. I just want to go home, just rest. It's not worth it if I'm going to risk a huge loss against this guy, right? So after thinking for a long time, my opponent decided to capture the rook, which pretty much just establishes a draw, because after capturing back, my opponent pushes a pawn to e4 and he offered me a draw. So he offered me a draw in this position, and it kind of makes sense, right? Because here I can just start activating my king, or I can just bring my knight, or I can just bring the bishop back here to b7. You know, I have different ideas like knight d7. I have like just bishop back here to cover c6. And whenever this gets pushed, I can just activate my knight. We need to keep in mind that we have, both of us, we have pawns on the queen side, 2 pawns, and then like 4 pawns on the king side. And we're going to start activating our kings. We have the same type of pieces. Everything's pretty equal, very symmetrical. That's why it's zeros. So the whole point is, like, we're just going to trade all the pieces, and just, it's going to be a draw anyway. And then we're also pretty tired, I guess, from the whole weekend, and we're just ready to go home. So here my opponent pushed the pawn to e4 and offered me a draw, and I accepted it. So we ended the tournament with 2 wins, 2 losses, and 2 draws against strong opponents. This was the final round of the event, drawing against a 2083 rated opponent. And I got my email a few days after the event. I think it's a couple days after the event, with my updated rating. So my updated rating was, first of all, it was 1675, right? Coming into this tournament. And post-tournament, guess how many points I won? Because obviously I won a lot of points, right? I played against all these people. I performed really well. So coming to the tournament with a rating of 1675, post-tournament rating is 1810. So I won 135 points for my performance at this event. How crazy is that? So we passed 1800. We did really well. And now, I don't know, I need to just keep playing like this, apparently, for future tournaments. And the Road to National Master Series is going to come to it's going to be not as long as I thought, I guess. But at the same time, not that I want to jinx it, But we play really well. We play really well. I was very surprised with my performance as well. So, did you guess right? I really want to know in the comment section how many points you thought first. Maybe you got it right on the dot, or maybe you even guessed even more. I thought I was gonna get more, but that I was very happy with what I got. It was still quite a lot. I think in one of my tournaments, the highest amount of points that I got was 150 points. That's the highest that I've ever gotten at a tournament. But also that was like one of my first tournaments too. I performed really well. I don't think I lost any games, but I got like 4 wins and a draw or something. So that is the conclusion of the second tournament that I've played so far in 2025. I'll let you guys know when the next one is. I'm not really sure yet, maybe in July or so. So we'll see. I hope you like this tournament recap. This is my best tournament so far. Amazing. Got to play against title players and defeat them and do really well against them. And it's all about, I just need to keep on practicing, keep on training and, you know, getting better. We all have to, right? So if we want to improve, I think the best thing that I did was play in the open section, the premier section, not just in the under 1700 or under 2000. That's my goal, long-term goal, national master title. I cannot really play against low-rated opponents and get there, right? I mean, I can if I want to take a long time, but we're doing well. So I hope you like this video, and here's a little reflection after round number 6. I hope you like it. Hey guys, I just finished the round number 6, and we got a draw. After round 5, I play knight f6, you know, a6. I need to just play c5, man. b6 was just too bad. Like, it was pretty bad. I think it was just ridiculous. After that game, I was able to analyze with a friend that I met at the tournament. And c5 is just such a great idea in d4 openings as black. So don't feel too scared of playing c5. It's a pawn push. And we noticed that whenever, like, in the nimso, after I capture the knight and I double the pawns, if I play c5, if the pawn takes, queen takes queen, and then king takes queen, and then you just have knight developing, attacking the pawn, and there's no way for them to defend it. So that's actually fine. c5 is such a great move as a black pieces against d4 openings, guys. So in my last round, I played c5 in the opening with knight f6, and it worked well. It worked super well. I was just heading towards the draw after the last move, trying to go for the rook, attacking the rook, defended by the bishop. It's pretty much a draw offering, because after the rooks are out of the game, that's just a draw because it's very symmetrical, same amount of pawns, same amount of same pieces, you know, 2 bishops and a knight for both guys, for both players. That's just a draw. So after rook takes rook, bishop takes rook, and my opponent just made a pawn move, and he offered a draw, and I just accepted it. That's just a total draw, you know. So I was happy with it. So we ended up the tournament with 2 wins, 2 losses, and 2 draws, and all against very high-rated opponents. Such an amazing performance by me, to be honest. I'm not sure how many points I'm winning. Maybe by the time that I do the recap, I have I get the email with the amount of points that I won. So from the previous tournament, I think my tournament rating is showing as the previous one. So it hasn't been updated, because last tournament I was at 1649 and then I won 26 points, you know. So yeah, that was it. It was like however many points. Cannot do math right now, but so it wasn't updated, but I'll let you guys know when I get the email about what my new rating is. I have a feeling, I don't know, man. I won, like, back in the day, one tournament I did really well, and I won 150 points, but I didn't face really high-rated opponents, you know what I mean? So this time I really faced all high-rated opponents, so I'm not sure how many points I'm winning. Would it be 150 again? Would it be more than 150? We'll see. I'll keep you guys updated. I'll keep you guys posted about it. By the way, join the Discord, guys. Join the Discord. I've met a lot of people here, and it's all about community, man. We're just trying to help each other out, trying to help each other improve, get better at chess. So guys, join the Discord, by the way. You know, like, let's do it. Let's get better, guys. Let's get better together. Let's reach our goals. Let's reach those ratings that we have set. So I'll see. I don't know. I think that's it, guys. This was such a good tournament. I can't wait for the next tournament. But also, I'll be having a baby soon, so that's gonna get tricky with going to tournaments. So I'll probably have to stop for a little bit, but I will be training on my end games. I think that's my goal next. Train a lot of end games. I wanna be very good at end games. So that'll be my goal for that'll be my next goal, my next milestone. So I'll see you guys on the next video. Bye bye.